So I went on an architectural tour at Neocon this past year, and very, very cool. Love architecture, the lines, the angles of it. That was where it all started. New Slant is a solution dyed product that is made with our type 6/6 nylon. It's from our universal supplier. What's great about that is it means it's going to coordinate with the vast bulk of the rest of our solution dyed products. It's made out of the same yarns as Formwork, so it's a great building block yarn. This was a product that had been kind of kicking around in the back of my head for a little while, the bits and pieces of it, but that sort of began to bring it all together in a cohesive story that made sense. We're looking at the buildings when you're in a city like that and you're on the ground and you're looking up at the architecture around you. And like as the sun moves and the shadows from these buildings get cast, they're all tall buildings, so you get these really strong angular lines that fall against the other buildings. So the architecture of the city becomes not just about the facade of the buildings and what's made and what you see there, but it's also about that play of light and shadow and the lines that are created that way. So with New Slant, one of the interesting things is you've got the surface pattern that's created by the colors that are there, which are two tonal colors. But then because we're carving out that texture, we're inlaying another pattern into the tufting, you get that play of light and shadows as well. It really hits the mark there. It's got that real high-low, carved out, inlaid texture that we're hearing a lot of demand for in the market. But I think that it approaches it in a way that's really nice and subtle. You see it when the light hits it, but it doesn't take anything away from the product either. It really complements it. So there's 4 patterns, and the 4 patterns are a study in scale. So we're moving from the smallest, which is Trisect, and then Sevian, and then Pinnacle, and then you've got Vector, which is the largest. Now Trisect and Pinnacle are both pure, one scale, one size, whereas Sevian and Vector actually mix those scales together. So that's what allows you to kind of bridge and transition from one pattern to the next. So this is Trisect. This is the smallest scale pattern. This is the pattern where I really think that the texture becomes the strong story. With the other patterns, the graphic kind of angular lines of the motif really come out very strongly, and this one they lay a little more quietly. It's a lot more about just the texture, that carved out high-low. I think that it almost begins to look like a Berber carpet, and this is the one that I think could kind of be resumercial and begin to warm up a space if you had it in the right color. So I think that this is just a really great all over texture, and it seams beautifully. So this is Sevian. This is the mixture of the smallest scale and the mid-scale pattern. So this would be the next one that you would use if you wanted to transition and kind of show that mix between the Trisect pattern and the Pinnacle pattern. It works great as a standalone pattern to just kind of break up your floor plane and give you a little bit more movement and that play of scale. This is Pinnacle. This is the mid-scale. I think that this is just a really super usable scale and pattern. You can see that it's got that strong, chevron, but because we're putting it in the tonal colors, it doesn't slap you in the face. And you've got that kind of play with the shadowing that happens in the carved out areas. So this is a really great standalone pattern, but it's also a great one to mix in with Sevian or with Vector. This is Vector, and this is the largest scale pattern that we have, and it's actually not all large scale. We tried that and it was a little bit optical, but we did really like mixing the large scale, which you can see a strip of right here, with that mid scale. So the scale that's in this part of the pattern is actually the same as the Pinnacle. And then this one mixes in this large scale that you can see here. With this pattern, sometimes you will get a tile that might have a lot more of this large scale where almost the entire tile is large. And then you might get tiles that look a little more like this where you've got more of that mid scale getting mixed in. It's a product that I wouldn't want to recommend putting in one spot because it could go in so many places. The designs are 4 different scales. So you're working from a small scale all the way up to a large scale. So having that scale play allows you to go into small spaces, large spaces. I think that the small pattern, which is Trisect, it is such a nice small texture. It begins to almost look like a Berber carpet. So it really kind of has that resumercial, warm feeling of more of a residential type of carpet because it is so textural. We really felt like the tonal colors were the way to go. In fact, the color names are all about the different materials that you use in architecture, and so instead of having kind of obscure names that don't really give you an idea of what the color would be, they actually do hint at their color. There's a concrete color, so you have an idea of the color that you're dealing with just based on the name as well. There's a lot of great direct coordinates with Nordic Stories, with Arctic Survey, with Ghost Artist, where you've got not just one yarn that's the same, but both yarns are exactly the same. So super easy coordination. This is a 25 by 1. Super simple. You just get a plank and it looks great in the plank. We really felt like the plank was the way to go. It's a longer design that they complemented each other. So this is one of the first products that we've launched that has Comfort Plus in our SDN line. We felt like because this is kind of a really nice high-end classic sort of design that you could really see this going into some CEO offices, some places like that, that we would go ahead and offer it standard with Comfort Plus so that it just helps make that sell even more. So another great thing about the Comfort Plus is you get the added acoustic benefits besides the fact that it feels great underfoot. This is fantastic. That's definitely somewhere we're going to beat the competition. I think when it comes to wear testing, it's an all-loop product and that gives it a great severe tar rating. So it seams really, really well. It's a pattern that, I mean, even here in studios, we've been laying it out when we were just bringing this pattern through, through production. It seams beautifully. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with your vertical ashlar, pretty standard with the plank, or if you just want to do a random, I think that you're not going to have any problems with seams. It's going to look really good.
Inspiring designs. Milliken floor covering.